I do want to show you a couple of things that have come up regarding Divi and just a couple of little features that might help if some of you are lost in a specific area. So I'm going to pull up a sample site that I have. I've got this dummy site that I use to test a bunch of things on. I'm going to go into my pages here. Got a bunch of basic pages about all this stuff. Let's see, I'm actually going to go into, I'm going to make a new page, test out, show you some couple of items here. We'll use the Divi builder for our new page. And we'll build it from scratch. Actually, we're going to choose a pre-made layout just to get some stuff in there. We'll check out all our layouts here. Let's just go to the farmer's market and we'll choose a home page for the farmer's market. And I will use this layout. Wait for a minute or two for this to load. It's loading all the images and assets to make this page, and check. All right, so now all of a sudden I have a farmer's market homepage. All right, I'm going to click on publish down here, kind of save it. I could save draft if I want, but this site is, like all of yours should be, is not being indexed by search engines as of yet, so no one should really be looking at it. Okay, so I have this. And I'm going to take a peek at the layout here. So I can see this fancy layout that I've got. Starts with a full width section. That's where you can see the difference between a purple section and a blue section. When you create a new section, you can choose whether it's full width or regular width. So it's got this full width section header. You can see that goes all the way across all the edges. You can kind of see where the content width margin is. You can see this down here is full width. It's like a gallery or something. And you've got the content width. Let's look back at this. Yeah, so we've got our full width section, got our market section with all this info. Here's an image gallery section, or inside of it's got some images added. All right, various things. And overall, I want to show you a couple of resources for learning to use these modules. Now let's just stick with a full width header up here, right? So in any module, because again, we can add a new module and there's only a few of them in the full width ones. If we go to add a module in the regular width one, there's all these different things to work with. Portfolio, and then what's the difference between portfolio? And then there's filterable portfolios, a little bit different. There's some more advanced things. Now, I've told you before that, first of all, you can just find like a lot just by searching through Google for Divi stuff. So like, for example, if I just go over to Google and type in Divi portfolio, and all of a sudden, well, the first thing it takes me to is a Divi portfolio module documentation that's got a video and then a bunch of information down in the blog post kind of showing how it works. All right, so there's real thick documentation on all of these that you can go through and find very easily, and several videos of people showing you, a 15-minute video showing you how to use it, right away, just from Elegant Themes, it's going right into their documentation, which is nice. 10 Divi sites with cool portfolios. Here's 9 impressive Divi portfolio layouts. If you're finding an issue, just kind of looking for it in Google is a good place to start. It's very helpful just to search, because WordPress and Divi are so widely used. I cannot stress this enough, that there are thousands and thousands of people out there using it. You're probably going to be able to find pretty good resources on this. All right, but a good place to start, even before you just go searching randomly in Google, is each of these modules. If we go to, I'm going to go into an existing module. So I'm going to click the little sprocket here next to the existing full width header module. Every single module, when we click on advanced, all right, I think it's over here. Yeah. If I go to advanced and go below the CSS stuff, whatever is open here, there's a little help thing. All right, and on every single module, when you click help, it literally opens up a helper screen that you can make bigger and do whatever you want with. but it pretty much is kind of like the documentation built right into Divi, which is really, really cool. So if you want to learn about the Divi full width header module, here we go. Here's a 15-minute video of this cool guy going through and explaining all of the ins and outs of using it, right? And then if you don't want to go through the video, or actually, no, these are videos. There's 3 separate videos going through settings and advanced module settings, saving and loading from the library. Wondering if these bottom 2 might be, this is kind of what I was going to show you. Wonder if these bottom 2 might be on all of them. But you can easily just find Divi's documentation just looking through Google or even going through the Elegant Themes website. Once again, their website and their blog is very, very, very useful. So again, Elegant Themes here. Let's see, blog. So down here at the bottom of the Elegant Themes resources, here's where we can see their documentation. Click on the documentation, and then we can see using the Divi theme options, using the Divi module and customizer, really those 2 Divi things, learning about the Divi library. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. I'm sure there are like thousands of these, at least hundreds, 16 pages worth that you can kind of search through and find stuff if you don't find it directly by looking in Google. And of course, again, the blog, between the documentation and the blog on Elegant Themes is just a really, really good resource for tons and tons of in-depth articles kind of showing you what to do. And that's just Elegant Themes. You search on Google, there's Facebook groups, there's just tons and tons of resources for finding stuff out in Divi. It's a huge program. So anyway, that's really helpful with one that you may not understand. So like, for example, let's go in and add, whoops, we'll get out of the full width. Let's say if right here, we wanted to add a blurb, but we don't really understand what a blurb is. We can go to advanced, help, and yeah, it looks like these settings and advanced module and then saving and loading from the library are on all of them, but they all seem to have this one video. Is this guy again. It's a 10-minute video showing us all about how the blurb works, right? So really, really good resource to go in and kind of find out what these different modules do. You want to kind of pick through anything in particular that looks inviting. Let's see how long these are. So, all right, there's 15 minutes going through the design settings and advanced module, and then 18 minutes going through the library. I'll show you a couple shortcuts to that. So that's one thing I want to show you is just in terms of learning more about these individual Divi modules. All of them, you can go to advanced, and then you can go to help, and it'll open up a little video showing you about how to use it, which is really cool. Now, regarding the portfolio one, that one can be a little tricky because honestly, the video at least, I found some other resources when you're looking around that's a little more helpful. But if you want to use a portfolio module, the video isn't super clear about one particular item, right? And I'll show you what I mean. Once again, if you haven't been, it is really helpful to go back and forth within this kind of sitemap view as you're getting used to Divi and building. It's really helpful to understand the structure of what you're putting together as you're building out sections and rows and things, loading other pages and modules, seeing out of the library, seeing what can be done and how things can be grouped together. But it's really, really helpful to go back and forth rather than just constantly working in this view where until you've got your initial layout, things can seem a little chaotic. I've been using this for years. I've built dozens of websites using this, and I still use this view to kind of lay things out. And then I'll look at this view when I'm actually editing the imagery and the text on the page and stuff like that. So regarding the portfolio, if I were to just go in, I don't think I have any in here right now. So if I were to go in here and want to add a portfolio, maybe I'll add a new section here, regular section. I'll give it one big row. Then I'll say I want to add image gallery as a filterable portfolio. Let's add a regular portfolio here. And if I just don't look at anything and just hit OK, start to add a portfolio. Let's see, it's under the market before the image gallery. I go to look at it. It just says no results found, right? And you might be like, what the heck is the portfolio? What am I doing wrong here? Right? Some modules require content to be already created because they're like group modules. So for example, Similarly, similar thing can kind of happen. Add a new row. There's a module called, where's it at? Is the blog one. It's alphabetical, go figure. There's a blog one where if I open it up, all right, maybe I'll just hit OK. I'll go in and show you these content things in a minute. All right, well, I do happen to have a blog post, a Hello World blog post, but I believe if I didn't have that, it would also just say no results found. And the reason is both the blog module and the portfolio module show actual content types, all right? So we've learned about posts, and that's what the blog module shows. So if I go back into my module settings and I can see that it's showing me, all right, well, it looks like within the blog settings, I can even choose different post types. But if you remember from when I was showing you the basics of WordPress, is that it comes out of the box with two different types of content. It comes with posts made for blogs, and it comes with pages made for individual pages. I guess I've got your media. But other plugins or themes will add other types of content that you can use, okay? And that's what both the blog settings and this portfolio settings does. It'll take a type of content and show you like thumbnails or pieces of it. So if I want to see my posts, I obviously need to have some posts in there for it to see. I don't do that through Divi. I have to do that in a different place through WordPress. It shows me how many of them I want to show, which categories I want to show, all this different information about how to organize the way in which I want to show my posts on this page. But until I actually have some posts created, it's not going to do me much good. It's the same thing with the projects, with portfolios. So let me show you that, right? So right now I've got Hello World. I've got no results found here. I'm going to go ahead and just save this page right now. And then I'm going to go back out into my dashboard. All right, so I can see my posts, I can see my pages, and there's another one here that we did not go through when we originally went through WordPress and just coming out of the box, because this does not exist until we actually add the Divi theme. And this is a projects post type. Those of you that have installed WooCommerce and they're going to do e-commerce, there are other post types. There's a product post type and just various other. Like later on, I'll show you how to create contact forms and web forms, and then you'll add a forms post type. So themes and plugins can add other types of content that you'll have to fill out. So if I were to want to add more posts on my page, right, I have to go into posts, and right now, instead of just Hello World, I would need to add a new post. And maybe I'll just use the default editor for this one, and I will say test post, and we'll publish it. Great, that is now published. And I go back, so it's a crappy little post that says hello. But if I go look at my page now, at the moment, I should see both the Hello World and the test post where I put my blogs. Now, the reason you're not seeing anything with the portfolio is because we need to have projects set up first, okay? Now, projects are just a kind of content type. There's really not a lot of difference when it comes down to it between posts and pages and projects in terms of you actually creating them and creating content for them. In all three situations, when you go to add new, you're going to have the opportunity to either use the default editor or use the Divi builder. I usually only use the default editor if I want something really, really simple, just like some text and image or something like that. But most of the time I'll use the Divi builder. So maybe I'll add a title. This is my first project. Use the Divi builder to create whatever this project page is. So I'll go in here. Maybe I'll build it from scratch. Maybe I'll give it 2 columns here. And maybe with this module, I will give it maybe I'll give it a title. I'll just give it text. The text. We'll just leave this text so your content goes here, blah, blah, blah. Over here, maybe I will add an image. All right, so maybe I'll have a nice kind of portfolio project here showing me an image of something I've done, telling me about it. Of course, you can have multiple images, lay out however you want it. But I'm going to go in and say or publish this. All right, now this is what's necessary for you to use either the blog thing or the portfolio through Divi. I'm going to go into the dashboard again, and now I've got projects. I have one anyway, and within projects, I could go into categories. I can organize them in different categories. So when I'm inside, you can do the same thing with posts. I go inside to edit it, and I can choose which category it's part of. Over here, I can add a new category. There's various kind of meta information that you can mess with here, but it doesn't have to do with the actual layout. All right, so if I were to go in and add a bunch of different projects for portfolio pieces, then I could go in, and when I use those elements in Divi, it will show up on the page. So let's see what actually shows up now if I go into my pages. I had no title in my example one. Maybe I'll just click on Edit with Divi, go in here. Okay, and here now we see stuff. So we can see that automatically, without me going in and changing anything, this module, which is showing me my blog posts, now shows me not only Hello World, but it shows me my test post as well. All right, and then here my projects, now instead of saying no file found, now it's actually showing me my first project. Now why it's not showing the image, I don't really know. There definitely would have to do a little playing around to see what exactly of that project this is showing, right? Like I believe it's showing like a small sample of it and kind of a thumbnail of it. But here I can again choose how many I want to show. Can show what categories, and then let's see, show title, show categories, show pagination. There's just a bunch of different options here. So you can get pretty deep with this. The portfolio thing, you can just go in, watch one of those videos. Here, I'll pull it up again real quickly. I go in, open this up, portfolio settings, go to advanced, click help. And right here, I've got a video showing me all about this module. I can kind of pick through it. And here it's showing him, he has already set up all of these portfolio pieces. This is where it doesn't really do a good job of explaining that you actually need to set that up in a different area in WordPress. But it is showing what it will do on the page. That here he's got 8 of them put together, and it basically will, you can create a little thumbnail of them. I think maybe you want to just create 1 column instead of 2 columns. Maybe that's why it's not showing up. But ultimately, it'll make it so you can roll over, see little thumbnails of these, and then click in to see more. And using a widget like that will make it so as you add more blog posts or as you add more projects, you don't have to go in and manually add them into your site. It's a dynamic widget that will automatically add them as you go along. And then there's obviously all kinds of settings you can use to lay them out in different ways. And the filterable portfolio lets you kind of use this little filter thing at the top to only show projects from certain categories. So there's a lot there, along with being able to take any module and just find out how to use it here through the help menu, or just searching through Google and learning a little bit more about the module. It's definitely out of the scope of this class just to go through the dirty details of every single module in Divi. There's a lot there. And then different plugins will add more modules, like I showed you with WooCommerce, adds a bunch of e-commerce modules and stuff like that. So I'd say probably half of them are self-explanatory. The other half of them you probably would need to dig in a little bit and see what they're all about. But do your research, spend some time. Let's see, so that should take care of that, being able to get a little more help on modules, and then these 2 in particular, being able to show like a stream of blog posts and a stream of projects. You just need to set them up in the actual dashboard first. Get back out to my dashboard. All right, the other thing I want to show you is regarding kind of being able to move modules around, save modules, reuse modules, that kind of thing. Is a really powerful library stuff that you can use as well as far as moving around. So I guess I'll go back into my page a moment. Go into my no title page, edit with Divi. I also wanted to revisit the idea of kind of the content area, the header area, and the footer area, all right? So I showed you this at one of the classes, but when we create, when we're talking about the content types, right now I've just got post pages and projects. Any of the 3 of those you can actually link to as if it's its own page from a menu or something like that. But pages are really the only one that's meant to kind of be used like a static page. The blog post is used to be, even though you can technically use them as individual pieces, They're meant to be used as like a blog page that just shows you a series of blogs and you click in and go further. Same kind of thing with a portfolio. You could technically link to an individual project piece, but it's really meant to be used in different ways, like within the portfolio module of Divi. But any of these are all just working within the content area. All right, there should be within the theme, whoops, I need to do that. Within the theme, beyond the content area, there's also kind of the other global areas. There's the header area, which by default just has the header and the menu, and then there's the footer area, which this part of the footer is the widgets. If you remember that, I could go in and remove these widgets and get rid of this whole area, but notice this is not, like I'm in editing this page, and I can't edit the header, and I can't edit the footer, any of this. This isn't part of the content area, right? So to edit this stuff, this one, once again, comes from the widgets. So if you go into appearance, widgets, I can see all of these widget areas, and I happen to have some widgets in my footer area one. None of the other footer areas have everything. So if I were to get rid of these, hit delete on all three of these, it would get rid of that big footer area. But the other two kind of thin strip, header area and footer area, those by default in Divi, you don't use Divi to control them. You use the customizer where there's different options you can use to customize those areas. But if you want to just completely customize it and start from scratch and use the Divi builder, that's where you can use this theme builder area. All right, and this is kind of a newer area in Divi. This is where you can create a global header or global footer, even a global body, which can get a little confusing. That's why I want to talk about this. Is this area is really meant to be like elements that should show up on every page in your site. All right, so you're all going to have more than just a home page. You probably have an about page, different like work pages, a contact page, whatever your pages end up to be. Right now, that header and footer show up on every single page, and however many pages you create, you're just working in that content area. So with this, I just want to be extra clear here that this area is only used to make global elements that will show up on every single page. You don't want to just use this area to make your home page, even though it can be a little confusing at first, because you could technically add a global header, a global footer, and even a global body. You could even add, a whole page worth of stuff under your global header. And when you're only working on your first page, you might not realize that these are in fact kind of meant to be used on every page. Now, you can create, templates to say which pages specifically these show up on. So in a roundabout way, you could technically build out a site using a bunch of different global bodies and a bunch of different global headers and giving them all permissions to show up on different pages and things like that. But ultimately, it's really meant for these to be like these global elements that will show up across multiple pages, and you just have these options to kind of say, okay, exclude from this one particular page or use on only this one particular page. But it's still set up for you to use posts, pages, and projects. In fact, if I go to look at my project that I created, my first project, I'm just going to view it. It's still, so it shows me my project that I created, but it still has the header and the footer in it. All right, the same thing is going to happen with the post. If I go to my posts and I look at my test post, I go to view it. All right, I'm seeing my great blog post here. It's a little different. It's got comments turned on, showing me my meta information like a blog post does, showing me the sidebar like a blog post does by default, but it still has the header and the footer, right? So whether it's a page, a post, or a project, you still have those global elements going around it. So I just want to be clear that if you are using the theme builder to basically create your own header and footer, you shouldn't really be messing with a body, or you shouldn't go beyond the header and the footer in here. You should be using the pages to actually create a home page. So like if I view my home page right now, actually I'm going to go back and view my example page that I just loaded from the farmer's market. It has all this beautiful content, but we still have the header and the footer in here. So in this case, I would go into the global area under Divi theme builder, and then I could replace that global header and footer which would show up nicely on my home page. And then as I go into pages and create my about page and my contact page, those headers are going to persist across those pages too. So just be clear that you're not putting everything together in this area, this Divi theme builder. You should be doing the majority of your content on your individual pages in the pages area. And then you should be using this Divi theme builder only if you want to completely replace the header and footer with your own and not just use the customizer to customize what it can out of that. The other thing I wanted to show you is how you can actually move modules around between pages or actually reuse them over and over again. There's a lot of really powerful features inside of the library. I'll show you what I mean. So I can go in, I'm going to edit with Divi again, my sample page here. And I open my little purple thing and I can open up the library right here. Save to library. Whoops. There we go. Just reload it on me. So over here, I've got my page settings, which is where I can just, this is actually worth pointing out here. The page settings itself is where we can put the title of the page. You can put a background for the entire page in here, not just within the site of the module. This is kind of like global page settings. It's worth noticing in this thing, just all besides the save thing and the stuff in gray really that I've pointed out before. I've showed you plenty of times this, which is very helpful. There's another kind of like similar to this layout, which is relatively new, which is called the layer layout. And that's over here next to save. This little gray icon you can click, and that in a less detailed, it's kind of more like an outline view, right? So instead of seeing the entire thing like this, I can see an outline view of it, and I can kind of expand it like this, and then I can use this to move things up and down in different areas. So whether you're using the full-on page view or you're using this sitemap view, as I'll call it, what is it called? Wireframe view, okay. Or using the wireframe view or the layers view. It's all the same thing, just understanding how sections and then rows go within sections and then modules go within rows, but it just gives you different visual ways to kind of see how it's organized and see how that hierarchy of the site goes. Now, you know, in some senses, this can seem really simple to work with. You're just dragging and dropping, you're just creating elements, poof, around the page. In some senses, especially once you load a full page and start trying to do what you want to do in your mind, and you're starting to understand some of the limitations, the design limitations of just what works and what doesn't work out of the box, you know, this can also be very complicated. But I will say that this is eons less complicated than doing the same thing actually writing code. All right, that's why we're using this. It's a big, complicated system, but it's much, 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 much less complicated. There's a lot more we can accomplish in a lot less time than it would be if we were trying to create a site of this caliber just by writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So within these, there's some more, let's see, section settings. All right, you can always just duplicate a section within. So within a given page, I can easily duplicate this blur multiple times. We can easily drag things around, move them around. There's a lot of capabilities within here. And then we can copy modules and paste modules. So that's pretty easy. I could copy it here, and I believe that actually goes across pages. I'm not positive, but I believe that you can copy and paste modules and module styles. So if you go in and set specific styles on like text, headings, image spacing, anything like that, you can copy styles from module to module. So it's worth kind of seeing what a couple of these different things are. And also lock modules if you don't want to be able to like accidentally click on them. So there's some different cool options here, which this is the same, this little 3 dots, that's the same menu that shows up here when you open the settings and you've got the 3 dots. So there's a bunch of different things, but one that's really kind of important is save to library. That's what I want to get into, besides just being able to copy and paste just within a page. Using the library has a different sense. So let me, again, investigate these global buttons down here. So we've got our wireframe view. What does this do? We've got overall settings for the builder itself. Look through some of those. Zoom around. Then obviously our different desktop, tablet, and phone views. We've looked at all of those. And then over here, we also can search. All right, so we can search for a specific term, and then if we find it, then we can find, I guess this is kind of, I don't know, just trying to find specific settings within it. We can search, we can look at our layer view, and then we've got our help menu here, which kind of has a bunch of different videos. Again, video tutorials. There's keyboard shortcuts if you want to be a super badass. There's a few video tutorials here. This is really just kind of getting started, but this would be a good thing to do if you're feeling a little lost. Maybe go through a couple of these introduction, jump starting, even down to becoming a power user with keyboard shortcuts. There's some videos here from this little thing just to show you how to use Divi. I mean, it's relatively self-explanatory once you learn kind of how to create sections and rows, create your columns, and then knowing how those break down into different sizes. But if you want a little extra help, these videos are a good place to start. All right, so that's around the outsides. Now we get into the purple buttons here. All right, we have the load from library button, we have the save to library, and then we can actually clear the layout, which would just blow everything else. So these two library buttons are pretty important. I'm going to come back to those in a moment. And then we've got our page settings. I'll just show you global settings for the page itself. We have the editing history, which is kind of cool. You can go in and kind of see all of these states of things that you have done, and you can go back and undo things and basically kind of have an undo visual editor there with the different steps you've taken. If you accidentally did something and don't know what it is, you can check it out. And then you've got this portability, which this kind of helps you export and import layouts into other sites. Probably won't need to deal with that. But the library is actually really cool. So the way we've used the library so far, if I go load from library, is we've got pre-made layouts. All right, we talked about that. It's up to 201 layout packs so far. Go into any of these, and there's multiple different pages that you can load. It's really fast and easy. That's what I just did to load this page, right? Well, you can also add items yourself to the library, right? So if I go open the library up, I can see that your saved layouts. Well, right now I don't have any. Or existing pages. It shows me all of the existing pages in my site that I can kind of start from as well. So besides using pre-made layouts just from Divi or existing pages that I've already created as a starting point, you can also save layouts and little widgets and items and things to the library itself. So let's say I have this full width section header here, and I have right here save section to library. You can see save module to library. Each of these levels save row to library. So you can save just an individual module, or you can save an entire section. Let's actually save this whole market information section because it's got 2 rows within it. I'm just going to go ahead and click this Save to Library and then give it, I'll call it Market Section. I'll come back to the Save as Global in a minute, but Market Section, and save it to Library. It's saved. And now poof, let's say I wanted to, well, let's go peek at it now. We can go to Load from Library. I think this one will save the entire page. All right, the whole layout. So at any level, you can save from this purple, you can save the entire layout, or you can save individual sections, rows, or modules into the library for later use. And what that means is you can then load it into a different page. So if you're in one area, like the global area, or a separate page, or a blog post, and you created a nice little layout, you can save it. One other aspect of this is what's called a global element. And that's really interesting, is that we can open it up. Whoops, let's try it here. Sure, let's save this to the library. And what we can do, we'll add it to this. We'll say test2, and we can make this a global item. What a global item will do is it will allow you to have an item that as you edit it in one page, it will edit in all of the pages that you have it. Right, so that's a pretty powerful little thing, but that's definitely what it's for in a nutshell, is to be able to kind of save these individual pieces into your own library. And it's really powerful because not only can you use it, within the same page, within, from page to page, but you can also kind of have your library and save it and use it in other sites. Like you can export your library and import it into other sites if you want to use layouts that you've created in other ways. The library is now context sensitive. They used to just dump it all in the library together, but now because you can add either an entire layout to the library or a whole section or just a row, it also depends where you're adding from the library. It's only going to show you the area from which you're adding from. So let me show you what I mean. So I saved this entire page by saving it here, save to library. So when I use this to load from the library, it's only going to show me entire layouts, all right? Now, if down here, if I want to add this little blurb to the library, I will call it a blurb. I will save it to the test category. All right. Now, when I go to load from the library, whoops, let's see, yeah. So when I go to add a new module now, instead of going to new module, if I go to add from library, now here's where it's showing the modules that I added. Okay, so you can see the blurb I just added. You can see a text layout that I looked at earlier, and I can even filter it by the different categories that I created. So the same thing would happen if I want to create a new row and I want to add from a library. I don't have any rows saved yet, but if I were to decide to take this market information title area row, which includes these blurbs and these titles, I could add it to the library. I'll call it my row test. I'll create a new category with rows, save to library, and now when I go to add a new row, add from library, now I can see my row test. Same thing with the entire section area. If I were to go down here and try and add a new section, add from library, here's the market section, the originally one that I did, the test section. I can filter them based on category. It looks like neither one of these are in a category. So I could click that and poof, it adds that entire thing. So you have to be at the level either of the entire layout, an entire section, an entire row, or just a single module. And whichever one you save it to, then when you go to try and add at that same level from the library, that's where you're going to see what you have saved. And then in terms of the global element, that does indeed work where when I save something, if I choose to save it as a global item, that means that when I use it, if I create a global item and add that same module to like 3 different pages, if I go and I believe if I just save it in one page, it will automatically update in the other pages. I believe that's how the global element works. You can make it so it like constantly saves back up to the library. Now, in terms of just a regular one, if I were to add an element from the library and then make changes to it, is it automatically going to update that element in the library? I don't think so. That's something you kind of play with and see what happens. But that is a very, very powerful tool built into Divi for you to be able to reuse stuff, whether you're trying to move things from page to page or even just create like your own library of layouts that you could use across projects. Really, really powerful.